Yeah, we back. Yeah, we back. Now we got a very important video today. Now, like I told you before, brothers, it's different types of warfare, right? You got economic warfare, you got diplomatic warfare, you got propaganda warfare, and then you got physical militaristic confrontation warfare. And that's what we are going to be talking about today. Physical warfare, as well as a small addition of diplomatic warfare also. And as you already know, economic warfare is sprinkled all over that. So let's get into it. As you can see, take a look up on the screen. Drone strikes by Mali's military regime kills 8 Tuareg leaders in the country's north. Mali says the army has killed senior rebel commanders. I'm not going to call them rebels. You see what happened? The Western media is trying to invoke sympathy for these terrorists. Keep in mind, these are terrorists, right? This is the fight against terrorism. Why are we trying to call them rebels? They're not rebels. They're terrorists. They're causing terror. But anyways, let's get into it, man. Let's jump straight into these articles. Drone strikes by Mali's military regime killed 8 Tuareg rebel leaders. You know what? I'm going to replace the word rebel with terrorists during this video. Okay, so you don't get, fooled by the propaganda. Now, let's continue. Drone strikes by Mali's military regime killed 8 Tuareg terrorist leaders in the town of Tinzaouatin in the north of the country, a terrorist spokesman said on Sunday. It was the first time since the start of the rebellion in 2012 that so many Tuareg terrorists have been killed in a single attack. Now, I want to stop right there to explain why that is so significant, because since 2012, over a decade, the Western powers have been present, justifying the military presence on the continent by saying that we are here to engage in the fight against terrorism, right? But as I always told you, these guys with the biggest armies and the biggest budgets, they haven't been able to produce a single result. After almost 10 years, right, saying that we are here to fight against terrorism, they couldn't produce a single thing. Now, they've been evicted from the territory. France has been told to go. The United States has been told to go. Now, all of a sudden, the rebel commanders, the terrorist leaders, they dropping like flies now, huh? They dropping like flies now, huh? Within 2 years, we done killed like 10 terrorist leaders without no help from the West. Within 2 years, they were here for over 10 years, couldn't kill a goddamn thing. After 2 years, we done dropped like 10 of them terrorist leaders. Keep that in mind as we go through this presentation. Now let's continue. The attack by Mali's military government comes a day after the terrorist groups in the north announced they were merging into a single political military entity. So, wow. So this attack where all these leaders got dropped, all these leaders got smoked, right? This comes a day after they announced that they were uniting into one block, right? All the terrorist factions were going to come together under one political military entity. And the next day, we dropped them boys, bro. Next day, we whacked them boys, bro. Let's continue. Azawad is the term used by the terrorists from northern Mali. The statement from the terrorists lists the names of the 8 Tuareg terrorist chiefs, the best known of whom is Fahad al-Mahmoud. Now, the individual they're talking about, take a look up on the screen. This is a video of him talking to his men. I believe this video was taken probably like a day before he got smoked, right? Like the day before he got killed. This is him right here. That's the guy that we're talking about, Fahad al-Mahmoud. You know what I'm saying? Whack that boy. Let's continue. Later Sunday evening, that was last night, the General Staff of the Mali Armed Forces confirmed the deaths of the terrorist leaders in a special operation. Now, round of applause for General President Assimi Goïta. Round of applause for the big homie, man. Round of applause. Let's go. Let's go. Now, this is not the first major military victory for Mali. Now, unfortunately, due to the fact that the Western media controls the narrative, they haven't really been talking about the military victories that have been taking place. But in today's video, we're going to be talking about that. In fact, just earlier this year, I did a video on it. There was a major terrorist in the Sahel, major terrorist jihadist extremist, right? By the name of Abu Huzaifa. Take a look up on the screen. He had a $5 million bounty on his head from the United States State Department, from the Department of State. They put a bag on that boy's head. They couldn't even get him. Years they were looking for that boy, couldn't even get him. Guess what? We got him though. Yeah, guess what? We got him though. Yeah, the black man got him though. Take a look up on the screen. This was earlier in the year. Mali says it killed extremist commander who took part in one of the worst attacks on U.S. forces in Africa. So this guy, as you can see, the reason why they put $5 million on his head was because he actually murdered American troops, right? He actually dropped American soldiers. So this guy, as you can see, real high status jihadist, like going crazy. But we actually got him though. We actually captured him. After 10 years, the French couldn't get him. After 10 years, the Americans couldn't find him, right? But as soon as we tell him go back home, all of a sudden, whack that boy, bruh. Drop that boy, bro. So let me tell you, with all your high status and your high powered weaponry and all your logistical technology, how come you couldn't find this dusty booty scratcher in the desert? You know what I'm saying? Somebody lying, bro. Somebody lying. These dudes talk about, man, we got the most powerful army. We got the most powerful military. We're with the Western powers. Yeah, get out of here, bro. You couldn't even defeat the desert dwellers. You couldn't even defeat the dusty desert dwellers, man. We had to go find them because your ass couldn't even find them. God damn, man. Don't you ever open your mouth against a black man ever again, nigga. Talk about fight against terrorism. Nigga, you ain't fighting nothing. Let's continue. Now, this is where it gets intricate. This is where it gets complicated. We got to talk about who are the players on the chessboard, both on the battlefield and behind the scenes. This was an article published by a French publication back in the summertime, a few months ago. It says this: Ukrainian drones provide support for northern Mali's rebels. The northern Mali terrorists. The French Le Monde newspaper reported that the Tuareg terrorists in the West African country use Ukrainian drones with discreet but decisive support from Ukraine against the Mali army. Now, there was a major terrorist attack that took place over the summer back at the end of July, and take a look up on the screen. The Mali army admits a large number of losses in fighting in the north. That article came out at the end of July. Let's continue. The Mali army on Monday said that it suffered a large number of deaths during fighting in the north last week, in a rare admission after terrorists claimed to have inflicted major losses. A unit was encircled by a coalition of terrorist forces, and fierce fighting began before the arrival of reinforcements. The army said in a statement read out on national television. The exemplary bravery and determination of our soldiers cannot avoid a large number of losses in human lives and equipment. The armed forces were analyzing the events to draw all the necessary lessons and readapt their security and stabilization strategy. Now, take a look up on the screen. This article came out at the end of August. The West African military governments write to the United Nations, the UN, over Ukraine's alleged terrorist support. The military governments of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have written to the UN Security Council to denounce what they said was Ukraine's support for terrorist groups in West Africa's Sahel region, according to the Mali Foreign Ministry. Ukrainian special services have offered information and training to Tuareg terrorists in Mali, particularly in drone operation. The French outlet Le Monde reported on August 1st, citing a Tuareg terrorist and other sources. Mali's military government consequently cut diplomatic ties with Ukraine in early August, followed days later by Niger. Now, back in the summertime, when this incident took place, where these Tuareg terrorists had killed many of the soldiers in the military government, I think like damn near 50 black men got killed that day. You seen all over the Western media. They were just, bragging about that shit. Just everybody was talking about, oh my God, the military of Mali destroyed. Obviously, they want to paint the narrative to basically put into the minds of the people. You see what happened as soon as they kicked us out? Look at them. They dying. They getting killed, right? They were dancing on the graves of our brothers, right? They were dancing on the graves of our brothers, right? Our brothers got killed fighting for their people, fighting for their territory. And they were just bragging about that just to score points against us, talking about, oh, well, you see, you kicked us out. Now look what happened. The terrorists destroying you now, right? And that is what is called propaganda warfare. Like I told you, the different types of warfare. That is called propaganda warfare. Now, let's continue. Subsequent reports suggested that Ukrainian special forces had trained the terrorists in the use of attack drones. Yet, for many Africans, this was yet another case of outside powers exploiting the continent as a bloody playing field for their own rivalries. Predictably, Mali's ruling military government and the allied regime in Niger protested by breaking off diplomatic relations with Ukraine. But much more significant was a statement from the regional bloc ECOWAS. Despite its own diplomatic issues with the military governments in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, it was clear in its rebuke. It declared in its firm disapproval and firm condemnation of any outside interference in the region, which could constitute a threat to peace and security in West Africa, and any attempt aiming to draw the region into current geopolitical confrontations. Now, first things first, I got to tip my hat to ECOWAS, because as you already know, you know how we feel about ECOWAS, but still, regardless of that fact, ECOWAS did come out when this information was revealed, and they did put out a statement of condemnation for Ukraine's role behind the scenes in supporting these, desert dwellers, these terrorists in the desert, right? And obviously, as you already know, the reason why Ukraine would have an interest in destabilizing the government of Mali is because Mali is currently engaged in doing business with Russia. It's not a secret, right? Russia is one of the plugs when it comes to the acquisition of weapons, right? So Russia is definitely one of the major plugs on the weapons, along with a few others, Turkey, things like that. So due to the fact that Mali is doing business with Russia, there are many geopolitical actors who are not happy with that. Obviously, Ukraine is engaged in a war against Russia, and then the Western powers, obviously, we already know they don't rock with Russia. So now you can see how a scenario could take place where Ukraine will be behind the scenes supporting the terrorists in Mali, while Ukraine simultaneously is getting billions of dollars in military technology from the Western powers, who coincidentally see the military in Mali, the government in Mali, as a hostile adversary. Not only Mali, but also Burkina Faso and Niger also. Because not only are they unhappy with the fact that they are openly engaged in doing commerce with Russia, but also they are going around attacking the multinational corporations, right? They're going around, locking up the CEOs. I did a video on that too. The military in Mali going around locking up the CEOs, pressing the CEOs of these multinational corporations. So, not only are we attacking the money, but we are engaged in commerce with people who they deem as their enemies. Well, not me. I don't want to say me. I'm just somebody reporting the news. But, when I say me, us, I'm talking about my brothers, black men around the world. That's what I mean. I'm talking about us as black men. I'm not saying me personally. Now, in terms of the terrorist factions that are currently destabilizing the government in Mali, you have two main factions, right? Two main factions. On one hand, you have the Tuareg terrorists. That's what we're talking about today. We whacked a whole bunch of their leaders, smoked them boys. You know what I'm saying? Smoked them boys. I don't know what they do it. I don't know what they do in Islam, like after you pass away, where the soul goes after you die, but that's where they at, right? They chilling with the 75 virgins. But anyways, from what I can tell, there's two main factions that are causing terror inside the country, destabilizing the government, sponsored by mysterious forces behind the scenes. Now, the Tuareg terrorists, these are an ethnic group, right? They're, a nomadic ethnic group, and their ideology, their objective is autonomy. They want to carve out an independent state. They want to break away from the central government and, start their own thing, have their own sovereign territory where they can call the shots. And the government in Mali is basically saying, no, we are not going to give up our territory to, you desert nomads. We're not going to do that, bro. We're going to keep all of our territory intact. So that's why they're fighting, the Tuareg terrorists versus the government. Then you got the jihadist terrorists, the Islamic extremists, right? Now, these guys are not trying to carve out a territory. These guys are not trying to be independent or sovereign. These guys want to basically, they're on a jihad for, Islam and things like that. We're trying to, put the entire world under Sharia law. So, that's why the government is fighting with these guys, because these guys are schizophrenic. So we have to just got to whack these dudes, man. They're schizophrenic. They need medication. They want to take over the world, put everybody under Sharia law. And the central government is basically saying, get the fuck out of here. Now, this is not something that's anti-Islam, because listen, the president of Mali, he's a Muslim. The president of Niger, he's a Muslim. I don't think Ibrahim Traore, I don't know his religious affiliation, but this is not something that is anti-Islam, because these are, men of Muslim orientation who are fighting, right? On the side of the government and on the side of the terrorists. It's just on one side, the military governments, these are black Muslim men who have common sense. These are black Muslim men who understand, sovereignty and independence, and they're trying to do things a certain way. And then on the other side, we got schizophrenic, Muslim men who are just, I don't know what the fuck they doing, right? But whatever they doing, we just got to whack them. That's all I know. You know what I'm saying? They can figure that shit out later. But like I said, this is not an anti-Islam thing. This is, on one side, you got the central government trying to maintain order and security. And on the other side, you got a bunch of schizophrenic patients who need medication, trying to cause terror and destroy the lives of innocent black men and women. Now, let's get into some more of the geopolitical developments that's been happening behind the scenes. Take a look up on the screen. This was back in March, earlier this year, from the French Minister of the Army, the Minister of the Armed Forces. This is an official statement from the French government. French military equipment has been delivered to Ukraine. And here is a list of the military equipment that France sent out to Ukraine earlier this year. Artillery, thousands of rounds of ammunition, armored vehicles, anti-tank rockets, several thousand anti-tank rockets, several thousand anti-tank mines, several thousand assault rifles, several hundred machine guns, and several million other ammunitions in terms of air equipment, drones, and reconnaissance equipment, and also small tactical drones, as well as fuel, surface-to-air defense systems, and air-to-ground armament systems. Now, if you've been watching the news recently in the past few weeks, you'll notice, take a look up on the screen, the United States announces $425 million military aid package for Ukraine days before the presidential elections. This article came out today, as a matter of fact. The United States will send Ukraine $725 million more in counter drone systems, anti-personnel landmines. Now, they're going to send Ukraine counter drone systems. Now, the reason why these terrorists got destroyed yesterday was because of the drones that were used by the Mali armed forces, by the military in Mali. So now the United States today, coincidentally the day after this historic military victory, is going to send counter drone systems to Ukraine, which has already been confirmed as supporting these same terrorists that just got destroyed. Just keep that in mind. Just keep that in the back of your head. Now let's continue. Just last week, Joe Biden makes a last-ditch ask of Congress for $24 billion to send to Ukraine. Now, I did a video 2 months ago. These same terrorists that just got destroyed, these Tuareg terrorists from the north of Mali, one of their leaders, one of their spokesmen actually was on French national TV for an interview. Yes, he actually was granted a visa by the French government, hopped on an aircraft, and went to France for an interview like he was dropping an album, right? Like he was dropping an album, right? So like I told you, they're trying to shift the narrative from these guys who were originally deemed as terrorists, right? That's why France and the other Western powers justified their military presence in the region. They said, we are here to fight terrorists. We are here to fight these guys, right? Now, they've been driven out. The French have been kicked out of Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Senegal, Chad. The United States has been kicked out of their $100 million drone base in Niger. Now the narrative has changed. These guys are no longer being referred to as terrorists, right, in the fight against terrorism. But now they're being labeled as rebels, right? These guys are being labeled as independence fighters, freedom fighters, right? So now this guy actually went to French national TV, and I did a video on that. Check that out, after this one. And he was given an interview with the French media, the French state-owned media, the French government-owned media. He was doing an interview like he was a goddamn celebrity. Now, keep in mind, this article came out earlier in the year. Armed groups, or should I say terrorist groups, besieging towns in northeastern Mali are driving the residents and many children to hunger. Now, this is the guy they invited on the French national state-owned TV to do an interview. Somebody who is part of a terrorist faction driving innocent black children to starvation, displacing whole entire communities, and this guy is given the red carpet treatment in the Western nations. My goodness. And in this same interview, he admitted that, yes, we have military links with Ukraine. Yes, Ukraine is one of our, partners behind the scenes. And we already know where Ukraine is getting their weapons arsenal from, their military technology from. But anyways, let's continue. That's why back in August of this year, Mali cuts diplomatic ties with Ukraine, accusing it of aiding a terrorist attack in the African country. Now, as you can see, it's so many geopolitical actors on the chessboard right now, right? You got the central government in Mali, you got the schizophrenic terrorists in the desert, and then you got the Western powers behind the scenes. And as always, the Western powers are trying to play the different factions against each other, right? Propaganda warfare. The Western powers are trying to refer to the Tuareg terrorists as leaders and independence fighters, right? Trying to give legitimacy to their terrorism in the Western media. Meanwhile, I thought it was the fight against terrorism, right? But you see how the narrative changes depending on what geopolitical interests are at play. Now let's continue. Back in October, obviously, Ukraine denies involvement in drone supplies to Mali's terrorists. Now, obviously, the central government in Ukraine is not going to come out and be like, yeah, we did that. Yeah, we the one who, we sent the weapons over there. Yeah, we did that. Obviously, right? But the military governments in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso have already taken this case to the United Nations Security Council. Now, I don't think anything is going to happen because the UN Security Council is dominated by the Western powers. The United States and France, I believe, both have seats on the UN Security Council. So, it's no point in even going down there, bro. The enemy's already got that locked down, bro. So, but it's a good symbol of, like, we're not going to sit back and let you do some bullshit in our backyard. We still going to go and launch a complaint, but I don't think nothing's going to happen, though. Anyways, let's continue. Mali's acquisition of the Turkish Akinci drone is proven to be a turning point in the fight against terrorism. The successful strike in Tinza Watson against the terrorists is the first illustration of this, marking a new stage in the Malian army's stability to conduct precision in aerial operations. Now, take a look up on the screen. I believe this was the bad boy that was used to assassinate the terrorists, right? The military technology. Now, I have to ask the Western powers. I have to ask France. I have to ask the United States, right? You claim to be our allies, right? Our trusted Western allies, right? But how come, because I did a video on that in the past, the Mali foreign minister said that you refuse to sell any military technology to any of the African nations that were fighting against terrorism, right? But you claim to be our allies, right? Meanwhile, as soon as they diversified their partnerships and started shopping elsewhere, started shopping around, How come everybody else wanted to open the military arsenal for us, but you didn't want to sell us anything? We know you got it for sale. You sending a whole bunch of shit to Ukraine, but you claim to be our allies. And just like Ukraine, we are also dealing with some destabilizing elements, some hostile elements inside the country who are trying to destabilize the government, right? But you claim to be our allies. But after years of this so-called alliance, you refuse to really open up the military arsenal. You refuse to, let us look at the drones. Let us look at the machine guns, at the assault rifles. You didn't want to send us anything, right? You didn't want to send us a goddamn thing. And as soon as we started shopping around, as soon as their brothers started shopping around, all of a sudden they got air defense systems. All of a sudden they got high-tech drones on par with the same technology that Israel got, wiping shit out, knocking off whole entire terrorist factions. Yeah, do your research, man. Do your research. That Turkish Akinci drone, that shit is on par with the same drones that's wiping shit out in Palestine by Israel right now. Yeah, the Akinci drone is right up there with the goddamn drones that Israel got over there going crazy in Palestine. And in fact, I believe the Turkish Akinci drone can actually eliminate targets at a farther distance than the Israeli drone. So once again, we got to ask France, we got to ask the United States. You claim to be our allies, our so-called Western allies, right? But how come you didn't want to sell us any similar technology? Why did we have to go shop around all the way in Turkey to get our hands on this fire right here? Also, you notice, how come they never do any fear mongering when it comes to Turkey, right? Because when it comes to Russia, when it comes to Turkey, when it comes to China, when it comes to even France or the United States, these are all diplomatic relations between sovereign nations. But how come whenever somebody talks to Russia, everybody fearmonger, oh man, Russia taking over, Russia taking over. But you never hear anybody say that Turkey is taking over. I never heard that, not once. Nobody ever said, oh man, the Turkish are taking over, right? They only fearmonger about Russia. And that is what we call propaganda warfare. Now, I want to jump into Natalie Yam's analysis of the situation. Shout out to Natalie Yam, Queen Mother Natalie Yam. I got the utmost respect, admiration, and veneration. Now, she had this to say about the entire geopolitical situation in Mali. She said, a year ago, the Mali army entered the town of Kidal. And if you think that's insignificant, remember, back in January 9th, 2013, while it was announced that columns of jihadists were descending on the capital of Bamako, Kunda Traore, the president who emerged from a coup, asked France for air support and intelligence. January 13th, 2013, French President François Hollande launches Operation Serval in Mali, which also included ground troops and therefore went beyond the request expressed by the Malian authorities. Now, as we already know, a lot of the current jihadist terrorism that is currently going on in the Sahel right now can be traced back to the Western-backed assassination and overthrow of Gaddafi in Libya back in 2011. Now, in 2013, these jihadist factions started popping up in the country. So when these jihadist factions started to pop up, the de facto president in Mali back in 2013 had called out to France for aerial support. And Natalie Yam says that France went above and beyond of what was asked of them, because not only did they come with aerial support, right, with the Air Force, but they also came with ground troops. So basically, what originally was supposed to simply be assistance in terms of surveillance, aerial support, it became a physical military occupation with aerial and ground troops combined. Now, let's continue. January 30th, 2013, the French army took up positions in the town of Kidal. Early May 2013, the French army prevented the Malian army from entering the town of Kidal. Among these soldiers who were turned back was soldier Assimi Goïta. Now, Assimi Goïta, as we all know, that is the current president of Mali right now in the modern day, as well as the president of the Alliance with the Sahelian States. But back then, back in 2013, he was a soldier in the Malian army who was fighting alongside the French in trying to, fight against terrorism. These same exact terrorists that the Mali army today has just destroyed by themselves, right? So back then, when Assimi Goïta was a soldier, when the French had came, they said the French prevented the Mali army from advancing into the town of Kidal, which for the longest time was basically a terrorist stronghold. And if you see here in this picture, you see Assimi Goïta to the right, and then you see, one of his close associates to the left. And now in the modern day, he is the president, and that gentleman is the Minister of Defense, the Secretary of Defense. You see in this photo, they having a conversation, and in this photo, Assimi Goïta is standing in the center, and that gentleman is standing behind him, right? So, you know what I'm saying? You got to keep your day ones with you. You feel me? You got to keep your day one brothers with you. It's how you got to do it, man. Now let's continue. Early May 2013, the French army prevented the Mali army from entering the town of Kidal. Among the soldiers turned back was soldier Assimi Goïta. That day, it became clear the French army is not there to fight terrorists, but rather to protect them. May 24, 2021, Colonel Assimi Goïta takes power in Mali. May 2nd, 2022, President Assimi Goïta ends the military cooperation agreements with France. August 15, 2022, the last mercenaries of the French army leave Mali. That was a glorious day. I was very happy that day. I was very happy that day. Let's continue. November 14, 2023, 1 year ago to the day, the Mali armed forces entered the town of Kidal, deserted by the terrorist scum pounded hard by the Mali armed forces, also known by their acronym of the FAMA, Force l'Armée Malienne. Deserted by the terrorist scum pounded hard by the Mali armed forces after their French and UN sponsors were forced to leave the country. History will record that what the French army, the European forces, and the UN forces failed to do in 10 years, Mali did it in 2 years. Round of applause, man. Round of applause, man. Now, in that statement, Natalie M was talking about last November, back in 2023, the end of last year. She's talking about the Battle of Kidal. Take a look up on the screen. The Battle of Kidal, a triumph for Assimi Goïta, the president of Mali. A triumph. Take a look up on the screen. The Tuareg independence terrorist stronghold on the edge of the desert in northern Mali has eluded Bamako's control for a decade. Bamako, that's the capital of Mali, the central government. Both inside the army and among the political class, the Malian officials had gnashed their teeth at the mention of Kidal, widely seen as an insult to national sovereignty. So for 10 years, nobody could capture this town back from the terrorists. The terrorists had this town under their firm control. Even the mighty armies of the West, even the mighty armies of France, with their allies, the United States, they could not shake off these goddamn desert dwellers in the flip-flops and the fucking bed sheets over the top of their head. They could not get these guys out of here after 10 years. They had $5 million bounties on this guy head. They're looking for this guy over here. They could not produce a single result after 10 years. And within 2 years of telling them get the fuck out the country, the terrorist is dropping. The towns are being recaptured. Bro, that goes to show, goddamn, all this talk of all this military might to fight against terrorism, somebody was lying. Somebody was lying, bro. Somebody was lying. And now, after we kicked them out the country, the narrative has changed. These same exact terrorists who the French government had sent air troops and ground troops to attack, now they're sympathizing with these same men, calling them rebel fighters fighting for their independence against the oppressive regime in Mali. My goodness, man, the propaganda warfare is in full effect. The propaganda warfare is in full effect. But that goes to show, man, the black man got so much on his plate, man. The black man, at the same time, you trying to develop the nation, right? Them boys shaking down the multinational corporations for every single dollar they got. And at the same time, you're under attack by these schizophrenic terrorists in the desert who are being sponsored by our enemies in the West. My God. And the black man got to feed, make sure everybody got food to eat. Make sure, bro, the black man got enemies, domestic and international. The black man got so much on his plate, bro. You don't understand. The black man is really, man, you don't understand, bro. The black man got a lot on his plate, bro. That's why I stand in solidarity with my brothers. That's why you see Assimi Goïta. When Assimi Goïta first came to power, he was young, he was vibrant, he didn't have a single gray hair. Now my boy got a whole gray beard within like a few years, because my man is under that stress, boy. You got to think about it, bro. Assimi Goïta, he got to go toe-to-toe against the multinational corporations. And you already know they want to keep making their same money, but he's trying to press them for more money for the state, right? He's trying to generate more revenue through more state ownership, trying to renegotiate the contracts. While at the same time, he's trying to get the security situation under control, right? Because we have multiple terrorist factions trying to destabilize the government, right? While at the same time, being assisted and aided by mysterious forces behind the scenes, right? Then you got to deal with the humanitarian crisis. You have to keep in mind, there's thousands of displaced individuals because of these schizophrenic terrorists driving them out of their homes. Whole entire families displaced, communities destroyed, right? Children starving. And at the same time, you're actively engaged in open battle against the jihadist terrorists and the Tuareg terrorists in the north. So it's no surprise that President Assimi Goïta, within a couple years, within like 30 months, my man got a whole gray beard. My man got a whole gray beard, bro. My man got gray hair out this motherfucker, bro. And of course, we got to talk about one of the greatest hypocrisies of our lifetimes, right? Western nations complaining about immigration, crying about immigration while they actively destabilize whole entire nations, whole entire regions, right? Creating all these humanitarian crises and then complaining when people migrate for better living conditions, right? And at the same time, insulting these very same people who migrate for better living conditions, who migrate to give their children a more peaceful existence while they currently destroy their existence at the same time, right? And when it comes to me, this is a level of hypocrisy that I cannot reconcile, right? They love to champion themselves as the defenders and champions of democracy and peace and stability. And at the same time, look at the bullshit you involved in. Talking about the fight against terrorism, right? But these same terrorist factions are being funded and armed through backdoor deals with Western allies. And then they got the nerve to turn around and complain about immigration when it was you who was behind the assassination of Gaddafi that gave rise to these terrorist groups. And at the same time, you turn around and then give support and weapons to these same terrorist groups to destabilize Mali. My God, man, the black man got so much against him, man. The black man got so much stacked against him, man. It's crazy out this motherfucker, bro. It makes no sense. You cannot destroy a nation's economy, destroy a nation's stability, destabilize a government, arm its enemies, provide weapons to its enemies, and then you want to act surprised and cry foul when the flow of migration ends up at your front door. Man, listen, these guys are on some bullshit, bro. These guys are on some bullshit. That's all I can say, man. One love, much respect to the Mali Armed Forces, much respect to President Assimi Goïta. Another major military victory, another one added to the collection, and that's why you are the senior officer of the army. That's why you are the highest ranking member of the military, because of this, because you have victories under your belt, right? You have real victories under your belt. Let the record show that Assimi Goïta recaptured the town of Kidal in 2 years when the French army and the UN troops couldn't do it after 10 years. Let the record show that it was the combined military forces of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, without any help from the West, that captured that $5 million terrorist, that captured a terrorist with a $5 million bounty on his head by the name of Abu Huzaifa, right? The U.S. military was looking for that guy for damn near, 5 years, couldn't even find him. And within 2 years, the black man found him, though. The black man found him. We found him, right? The so-called greatest military in the world, but you couldn't find a dusty desert dweller booty scratcher by the name of Abu Huzaifa. Yeah, we're going to pay homage to our brothers. We're going to show respect to our brothers because they're trying to slander them in the Western media, trying to throw dirt on their name every chance they get. So we're going to put honor and respect on the names of our brothers, man. One love, President Assimi Goïta, another military victory, one of the great black men of our time. Anyways, man, it's your boy Neferkari. That's Salim back in the building. Yes, indeed. Cash App in the description. Support the channel, man. Support the album. Peace.
No. Feel like I'm 75. Know that your team be full of them traders, you know that can never be mine. I'm grabbing a thought when I drive. I'm back in my zone and we on. She said that she ready to come be my wife, yeah, hoping I don't do her wrong. I gave her my word in this bond. I'm whipping the best like a lamb. I mean no chicken and lamb. Accustomed to call me the man. I never be up on the gram. I'm keeping that way undercover. She want me to tell her I love her. I told her I'm breaking the rules. I told her we making the news. Back in my city, they loving me. Standing alone, I'm 100 deep. Enemy plotting is still in reach. They trying to make sure that we underneath. Trying to make sure that we never make it. Coming for power, come get acquainted. Coming for everything that I wanted. Feeling like Drake, but I really wrote it. Feeling like Kendrick, I'm checking names. Gotta roll up while I go insane. Got so much stress, I been gained weight. Stuffing these racks in this Louis case. One thing for certain, I'm about to check. Keep it 100 and nothing less. Stick with the family since day one. Had to stay down till my day come. Had to stay down, but I'm never patient. Hop on the mic and I'm motivated. Hop on the mic and I drive a classic. Haters can't see me, they copping glasses. Back in the studio making magic. Got a new tape and it's in production. Back on my business, I got a budget. Staying low key when I'm out in public. Feel like I'm 75. Know that your team be full of them traders, you know that can never be mine. I'm grabbing a thought when I drive. I'm back in my zone and we on. She said that she ready to come be my wife, yeah, hoping I don't do her wrong. I gave her my word in this bond. I'm whipping the best like a lamb. I mean no chicken and lamb. Accustomed to call me the man. I never be up on the gram. I'm keeping that way undercover. She want me to tell her I love her. I told her I'm breaking the rules. I told her we making the news. Making it news, making it news, breaking the rules, yeah, know that we making it